Everybody, welcome
That's
to our latest chat pod. Delighted we've got a couple of sessions coming up on all things to do with our Council of Governors. Really important aspect of board work. Got myself, Chief Executive Paul Devlin, Chair, and one of our staff governors, Pallab Majumdar, who's joining us today to have a conversation about what it's like to contribute to the COG, as it's called. And to some reflections on that. We are out to advert for some elections currently. So this is just a bit of a flavour of that. So Paul, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, thanks, John. And it's really important that we've got a bit of space to talk about our Council of Governors and the role of different governors. And we want to talk particularly about the role of staff governors. I'm really pleased, Pallab, that you've agreed to join us just to talk a little bit about your experience of being a staff governor. I wonder if we could just start with you just giving some reflections on how it's been for you as a staff governor.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for inviting me to this one. It's really a good opportunity for me to share my experiences. I mean, I've been a staff governor, medical staff governor for a good few years now. I was going to say 2 years, but probably I haven't counted 2020 because it's all in a haze, like walking in a trance. So it probably would be closer to 3 years. And it all began, I think, in a chance conversation with one of my colleagues, grabbing a coffee in the cafe. Who were at that time was the running staff medical governor, and who put forward a very persuasive argument why people should get involved, why I should get involved, step outside the hamster wheel, run, and sort of look above the parapet a little bit. I've never thought I'd probably put myself up for it until that conversation happened. And the argument seemed to be persuasive to me, so here I am 3 years down the line, sort of taken up that role, and I think it was one of the best decisions that I made. Although at that time it felt like I've got enough in my plate already, sort of busy day starting from 9 till 5. I don't need to know what happens in the wider world, so I couldn't be more wrong, actually, because it has been a learning curve. It still is a steep learning curve, because it's a giant of an organization, and knowing about it, getting the gov's eye view, if you like, has been quite a journey, and it has been quite helpful. It's better than a bird eye view. It's almost like a computer assisted designing that architects use. You could have sort of zoom into the closest bubble within sort of the frontline part of the organization, and then you zoom out and you change angle, go around and look at the organization from a different angle, and that was really enlightening for me. To know that I'm part of a much bigger thing than I thought I was. I would probably think about the analogy of, so I was holding on to the tail of an elephant and under impression that I was dealing with a rope. So now I sort of I see the elephant for what it is, and talking about the analogy of elephant, probably I can also feel empowered to talk about the elephant in the room if there is one.
That's great.
So the experience was probably, a feeling of having a voice, being a part of a large thing. So
great.
Yeah.
That's it. It's really good to hear your reflections, and I think one of the things for me is that the governor role, staff governor role, and the Council of Governors are really important to me for the trust. It's not all NHS trusts have councils of governors. It's only foundation trusts that do, and it's an important piece of how we hold our governance and our connection to the wider public as well. And you as you know, Pallab, you've got some quite specific responsibilities, and one of them is to hold myself and the non-executive directors to account for the performance of the board. you know, and we're there doing our piece with the executives and holding John and his team to account, but it's really important that we're being tested and held to account. And it may be that colleagues aren't aware that you know, my first encounter with yourselves was obviously the responsibility for appointing a trust chair sits with the Council of Governors. So it's certainly important for me to be working as well as I can with you. And I suppose I'd give some reflection that I think we've been working quite hard in this last year, despite the pandemic, to really look at how we empower and engage our governors and make sure that we're doing the very best that we can. And whilst there's still more to do, I suppose I'd be interested to get your reflection, Pallav, about how you think we're doing with that in terms of that involvement and how that feels.
Well, I mean, my starting point probably was an unsure one, and like I said earlier, that I didn't never think that sort of I have anything to contribute, and as many of sort of my contemporaries might think that it is part of the thing that has to be, being a foundation trust, we need to have a council of governors, and that's where it stops. But since I've been in this journey, I've realized, like you're saying, being on the interview panel, interviewing you to appoint the chair of the organization, but being with my peer group, with my colleagues in the council from different walks of life, public governors from different constituencies, from the partner organizations within the trust, from completely different service than mine, and working together under the around the table. Well, it's not around the table anymore; it's on the MS team. It did make me feel that actually a difference can be made. And I did sort of, you know, when I sort of give a brief the Council of Governors meeting to my medical colleagues and give some feedback, I say that it is not a toothless body. We have got the voice, and I became sort of increasingly convinced that the trust has got all the good wills, and especially in the last couple of years, the trust leadership has got all the wills to actually work with the Council of Governors and sort of make their voice and their influence stronger, so that sort of the checks and balances that everyone in the health economy needs an assurance for can be provided by us. We can do our best, and I think the organization is with us in that journey.
Thanks. That's really good to hear, John. I know that you know, obviously for staff governors in particular, there can be some particular challenges that we need to be conscious of addressing. I wonder if you want to say a bit about that.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, and thanks for your reflections, Pallav. I think I'd concur with your view, particularly the point about as an individual thinking I haven't got anything to contribute here. You know, I'm in my clinical world or my particular world in the trust. What can I add? But that it's really important for both the board and the council to have a window into that world. So if people are not sure about whether to put their hat in the ring or not, give it a go, because it can be really helpful in terms of your own personal development too. In terms of your question, Paul, I think one of we have put some energy into really refreshing the relationship with the council and to really support it and develop it. And one of the things that, you know, and there's an ongoing list of things that we need to improve. And one of the things that we're putting some focus in at the minute is how we both support the individuals that come onto the council, but also looking at the services from which they come. So there may be some areas where there's you know, a relatively small number of specialist skills. Say, for example, that if someone is doing council work, there's a gap, and we've not all. We could be better at covering that. So that would be one of the issues. And I think the other thing is perhaps providing more information more broadly about the role and function of the council, because there's lots of things that it gets up to which are quite central to some of the things that we do, particularly around the culture and the values and the improvement work.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's been really useful to do is to make sure that we're making use of that breadth of experience that you described there, Palab, and not just going to the council with the finished product, but actually being able to make use of you in the best possible way in terms of a bit of co-production and testing ideas out. And I think that's a little bit of a more new space that we've come to with the council, but I think it's massively valuable as a way of us just getting diverse views from colleagues like yourself on ideas. And we know that we're a really ambitious organisation, and we need to be able to draw on others' ideas and innovations, and I think that's part of what the council can bring to us.
Shall I make a point as well to concur with you that if somebody wants to or considers being a governor in the cog, the cogs and the wheels of the organization, then I think it can't be a more exciting time than this, because obviously 2020 has been a challenge, but challenges are opportunities. And being the governor of council, a council of governors, I have seen that there are things that are happening. There are movements in direction that probably were not thought about. We had a meeting yesterday with our chair of the Council of Governors about the governors meeting more informally, working together to be more creative with how they can contribute, and being in this position of having the God's eye view of the trust. It gives us reminds me of many moons ago my driving instructor saying that look near and look far. So I have been looking very near, very well for a very long time. But being on that council probably gives you an idea of looking far as well. So a sense of direction of where the organization is going and probably contributing is a very good, is a massive thing.
Great, thank you. I mean, you're a really strong advocate for us, Palab, which I really appreciate. So I think just to say to colleagues who are watching that we currently have a vacancy for a non-clinical staff governor, and that those nominations and then elections are open until the 18th of December. And also to say that in terms of your families and friends locally, there are a number of public governor seats that are available. We will be doing another chat pod with our lead governor, Jim Aleander, quite soon as well, and we'll share a bit more information about that. But hopefully that gives a little bit of an insight into the Council of Governors and the role of staff governor. So thanks very much, Palab. John, any last word from you?
No, I thought that was a really good summary, and just again also to thank Palab for his reflections. I think they brought a richness to our conversation, and hopefully will encourage people to apply and to pass on to people that might become public governors too.
Great.